Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar meeting this morning, celebrating 1 million refugee stories. So today we're going to be talking about all things Refugee Week. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm just admitting people as they come into the waiting room. My name is Rebecca Langton. I'm the manager at the Refugee Council of Australia. And thank you to all the councils that are joining us today. So we have many councils in the meeting, and we also have many other um, uh, community groups and some of our refugee ambassadors I'd like to acknowledge are also with us today. So thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to start the meeting now by giving an acknowledgement of country, and then I'll introduce the speakers for you. So on behalf of the Refugee Council of Australia, right, I'd like to give an acknowledgement of country today. So we pay our respects to the traditional custodians of the lands we now call home, their elders past and present, as we work towards a more inclusive future with fair and humane policies for those seeking sanctuary. We remain committed to working alongside First Nations people for the achievement of a fully reconciled Australia. So thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned, I'm Rebecca Langton, manager at the Refugee Council, and today I will be moderating the meeting today. And we have 3 speakers today. The first speaker is Sophia, my colleague Sophia Ducker-Jones. Sophia is our media and communications coordinator based in Brisbane. And so Sophia also does all our media work, and she project manages Refugee Week. So Sophia will be talking to us today about all the resources and the theme for Refugee Week and what Refugee Week means and Refugee Council's involvement. And then we have Dina Yarko, who is also my colleague and Director of Community Engagement at the Refugee Council. Dina is also the manager of our Refugee Stories for Change program. And she is a former refugee herself from Iraq, and she has more than 20 years of direct experience working in settlement services and advocacy here in Australia. And then, last but by no means least, we have Francine Scully from River Nile School in Melbourne. So River Nile School is an independent school in Melbourne that educates young refugee women from many diverse backgrounds. River Nile is more than a school, it's a community, a transformative community that supports young women to thrive. And Francine is the engagement coordinator for the school. So thanks for joining us today. So I'm going to hand out, first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone is on mute, and if you could keep yourselves on mute, that would be appreciated. And if you have any questions, if you could put them in the chat, we will do questions at the end after all 3 speakers have spoken. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will certainly answer them later in the meeting. So thank you again, everyone, and I'd like to hand over to Sophia.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Rebecca, for that, and thanks everyone for joining. It's a real pleasure to have you all with us to talk about what is included in Refugee Week, why we do it, the benefits of taking part in Refugee Week. So I just wanted to start off by talking about what is Refugee Week. There might be some people in here that have not, in this meeting, that have not taken part before. So Refugee Week is the largest annual celebration of refugees in the world. It celebrates strength, resilience, and contributions of refugees. And this year is quite poignant for a number of reasons. It marks 40 years of celebrating Refugee Week in Australia. So the first Refugee Week event was held in Sydney on the 9th of November 1986. Started with a street procession and a picnic lunch, and now it's much, much more than that, with hundreds of events around the country. It's also not just nationwide, but it's a global celebration. We have, I believe it's about 25 countries around the world that also celebrate refugees. It's a time to really come together as communities, learn about refugee experiences, and celebrate the diversity which refugees bring to society. So, Beck, can you just move to the next slide, please? So there are a number of aims for Refugee Week. We aim to educate Australians about refugees, who they are, why they come to Australia. Often during Refugee Week, it's the first time a lot of people would have heard a refugee story before. So it's a great opportunity to increase the understanding and challenges that refugees face, celebrate the contributions, as I said before, and encourage communities to create safe and welcoming environments and inspire people to take positive action and encourage service providers, such as a lot of people who are in this webinar, to reflect on and improve support for refugees. It's not only just about celebration, it's about awareness and action. It's an opportunity for us all to get involved in whatever way we possibly can in a really positive environment. Uh, Next slide, please. It focuses on celebration. Quite often, as you might be aware, when we hear about refugees around the world, it's often painted with um, a negative impact, a negative story. So this is a really time to really focus on the positives that refugees bring to society, celebrate the contributions that refugees make in the community, and focuses on how community can provide that welcoming environment for refugees. Fundamentally, it really focuses on celebrating resilience and community and the ways that refugees shape and enrich our society. Um, Next slide, please, Beck. So every year we have a theme for Refugee Week. The last few years we've had an overarching 3-year theme and then with sub-themes underneath it. This year we are doing something a little bit differently. As I mentioned just before, this year we're celebrating 40 years of Refugee Week. But we're also celebrating the fact that, and honouring the fact that last year Australia welcomed its millionth refugee. So it's quite a big year for us. So that's 1 million refugees since 1947. So when we were thinking about the theme, we're thinking about not just that 1 million, but the stories of those 1 million, the contributions that they've made. Every story is unique, each one is powerful, and together they shape the Australia that we call home. Every single refugee journey influences many lives, children's, grandchildren's, future generations, creates that rich tapestry of stories that continue to shape our communities. One of the reasons that we came up with this sort of framing is because, as I mentioned, it's not just that 1 million refugees. It's much greater than that number. It represents 1 million individual stories by people who've rebuilt their lives here and become part of that Australian fabric. And for many people, including myself, we're descendants of refugees, my grandparents in this instinct. So I feel like I really carry their story. So it's that 1 million refugees plus their children, their grandchildren, their teachers, their friends, their community. And we really want to focus on that fabric that's been created since 1947 for this year. Next slide, please, Beck. So we have a number of resources that we create each year for Refugee Week. I've listed a few of them there. So we have a general resource kit, which provides information about Refugee Week, refugees in general. If you're thinking about hosting an event, it provides a whole list of ways you can host an event, how to put on an event, how to have a successful event. We also have a teacher's resource kit, and that includes a lot of tools for how you teach about not just Refugee Week, but refugees in general in the classroom, how to make kids understand what the plight of refugees are, and there's also a lot of recommendations of books and films included in that. We also have our website, which is constantly being updated. There we have stories of freedom. Those are stories of people who have lived refugee experience that we've worked with in the past for Refugee Week, which you'll see a lot of their photos used in a lot of our collateral and our poster. And so it's the stories that are beyond those photographs. We also have social media templates that we would encourage you to use. We are still in the middle of doing the final design stage. But once they're all finished, we will be sending them out and publicising them as well. Beck, next slide, please. One of our biggest pieces of collateral is our poster. So I've used the poster that we had from last year. We're still in the final development stage of this year's poster. It is a major promotional piece for Refugee Week. They always reflect people of lived experiences and their refugee experiences, and we tie it through to that theme. Without being able to show you the photo for this year at this stage, I can describe to you what it is. We have included a lovely lady, Tu Trang, who came to Australia as a child refugee in 1988 from Vietnam. And she's gone on to have a very successful career as a lawyer in Melbourne. And we've photographed her and her two young children outside the development of the Vietnamese museum that's being built at the moment. So with that, we really hope that all of our photos, including the one that we use for our poster, reflects our past, present, and future stories. All the photos that we do use in our posters and promotional materials, they feature always real people with lived refugee experience alongside their family and their communities. Next slide, please, Rebecca. Do I have a next slide? No, sorry, keep back to the next slide. Sorry, I thought I had a next slide. Keep back to the other one. I'm sorry about that. With the other people who we include, whether it be in our poster and with our other photographs used in social media and other parts to promote Refugee Week, we always include their stories in their social media, in our resource kits, and on our website as well. So if you're interested to know a little bit more about who we include, we can, there's ways to find out who their stories are. Now you can go to the next slide, please, Beck. So there's many opportunities and ways for you to get involved. One of the ways you can get involved is becoming a poster pickup point. This is quite a major deal. By becoming a poster pickup point, you become a hub for your local community about anything that's Refugee Week. It's a really good source of publicity for your own event as well. We publicise where people can go and pick up the posters from as well. So when Rebecca sends through this webinar, we can include how to order those posters and how to become a poster pickup point. You can also register your event with us, which will be on our website. It's really easy to register your event. You just need to go to Refugee Week events, and it's really simple to do that. Once you do that, your event will pop up on a little map. People can easily see where it is and how to RSVP for it. And once again, that link will be included when we send the recap of this webinar. We also have majority of our staff are staff with lived experience who are also available to take part in panel discussions, Q&As, information webinars to share their stories and participate in community events and discussions and any further panels that you have. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm sure there are many questions.
Thanks so much, Sophia. So yes, please do put any questions that you have in the chat, and they'll come to me, and we can answer those questions at the end of the meeting. So our next speaker is Dina Yako, and Dina is our Director of Community Engagement at Refugee Council. And Dina manages our Refugee Stories for Change program, which she will be talking about in her presentation. And Dina, as I mentioned previously, for those of you who joined a little bit late, so Dina works for Refugee Council, and prior to that, she also has many years' experience working in refugee resettlement in Sydney, and she's a former refugee herself from Iraq. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Dina. Thank you.
Thanks, Beck. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sophia, for a lovely, lovely presentation and very comprehensive. So today I will speak about the Refugee Stories for Change program. It is a program within, obviously, RCOA. The program itself is a flagship program that was established in 2014 as a public education program. And since then, the program has actually grown a fair bit. We historically were targeting school children and students at schools, but since the involvement of the program, we have now been working closely with young people, in the school setting or university setting, local government, corporate, and community. So the aim of the program was to create social cohesion and community harmony. And this came about when there was a time, and unfortunately there is still the same thing happening, where the media was portraying refugees and people seeking asylum in a very negative way. So we consulted as a peak organisation with communities, and we asked, what can we do to support you in getting your stories out? And basically, this idea came about. This idea was born where we could actually be working with people of lived experience, where they are given the opportunity and the platform to speak about their refugee journey and why it's so important, and basically educate the wider public about why does someone become a refugee. So taking things really back to basics and then working on that and developing that program into something bigger as we moved forward. Obviously, it's about addressing the negative misconceptions about refugees and people seeking asylum, not just in Australia, but it became a global conversation, a national conversation, and a global conversation. So we've managed through the program to actually speak to other entities, not just nationally, but actually globally, about the importance of including voices of people of lived experience. To date, the program has delivered approximately 663 sessions locally, nationally, and internationally, targeting thousands of audiences in Australia and across the globe. Next slide, please, Beck. Okay, so just to give you a snapshot of what we've done in the past, 10 years, 12 years. So as mentioned, we have delivered over 600 and, close to 650 sessions. We've reached over, 80,000 Australians across, Australia, and they have been able to connect with people of lived experience, and have been able to learn and explore the idea of communicating to people that have a refugee background or come from a refugee background, and what that has been in terms of what the journey entails to arrive to Australia. We've also, just a couple of months ago, trained a new cohort of what we refer to as our refugee ambassadors. And we have taken that number now to roughly about 127 refugee storytellers that have been trained through the program. Our program is a national program. We have refugee ambassadors all across Australia and are obviously trained and have given the tools to actually go out and speak to community and connect with community. We've delivered over 25 training sessions for the refugee ambassadors themselves in the space of skills development and mentoring, because we feel like it's really important in order for us to work ethically and collectively. It's also very important that we identify the needs as a peak organisation and deliver those sessions to the refugee ambassadors. So, of course, as Sophia mentioned, we have developed a comprehensive resource list for schools, but also we are working on, expanding that comprehensive resource list to government, corporate, and community groups as well, so that they could actually get access to, the information that's actually available and is, a list where we recommend people to engage with, because they do have some really fantastic resources. So basically, our outcomes and impact have been around 92%. There's been a 92% increase in understanding the forced displacement journeys. So these are all the feedback that we have received from our stakeholders who have engaged in the program. And we've also worked on launching a 5-year impact report that looks at our journey as an organisation, but also as a flagship program, and what have been the accomplishments, but most importantly, the impacts that we have had through the session. So as you can see this briefly, we've engaged with obviously over 410 schools and educational entities, community and government organisations, over 200 organisations that have been engaged in the program. And we are slowly working and chipping at the business sector and the corporate private sector. And we've had over 40 presentations delivered for those. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the engagement impact for local councils and what that means. I guess that the support that the program offers local councils is to actually strengthen and have a more welcoming community, because by amplifying the voices of people with lived experience, it is really, really important to be given that platform and given these opportunities to people who have gone through the journey themselves. I guess through facilitated storytelling sessions in community events, it opens up dialogue. The program also helps residents to better understand the refugee journey, while also challenging some stereotypes and misconceptions that the wider community may have about refugees and people seeking asylum. So, of course, I wanted to give a bit of a highlight, and this is also collected through the data that we've managed to collect throughout the years and the feedback that we've received from local councils that we've worked with. It basically, what the program does is support councils, obviously multicultural and anti-racism strategies. So it basically promotes social cohesion and community harmony by creating these opportunities for residents, as well as encourage respectful community dialogue, which is really, really important, especially when there are some really complex conversations and issues around migration, identity, and belonging. We feel that, by addressing those stereotypes, what best way of doing it is by meeting someone who's gone through that journey and have them tell their side of the story rather than have people speak on their behalf. Of course, it's about empowering refugee ambassadors, because refugee ambassadors are more than just a faceless story. a lot of them have faces, and a lot of those faces have stories, and a lot of those stories have faces, and they have agency to self-represent. They have the agency to empower others. So we feel that through the program, we actually enable that to happen and encourage other stakeholders that work with us to allow that same space, that same safe space for refugees to self-represent, as well as assist councils in community engagement initiatives, particularly during the national events such as Refugee Week. I think it is aimed at helping councils deliver impactful programs to celebrate the diversity and promote inclusion. Just last year, we engaged with 12 local councils across the country, and we had thousands and thousands of people attend those events. And we are already looking at and finding that the councils that engaged with us in previous years have actually come back and rebooked for a session, because that has been the highlight activity of the events during Refugee Week. Next slide, please, Rebecca. Okay, so just to obviously, to wrap up, so we do have a special, 20% discount that we have offered for the 40th anniversary of celebrating Refugee Week. So we are offering an early bird booking offer, which gives you a 20% discount of obviously the full price. And what we have done this year, and what we've noticed that that often happens, a lot of councils and other stakeholders intend to want to engage beyond Refugee Week. So we have extended the bookings until the 31st of October. So if there is an opportunity to engage, and for whatever reason we may be busy, or we can't actually meet that the date that you're requesting for us to do a presentation, we can actually work with you beyond Refugee Week to actually get those stories out there and get people to engage with our refugee ambassadors. We have a pool of over 40 refugee ambassadors from all around the world, and they have had very unique and very interesting lives, and very, very interesting and resilient and powerful stories to share. So we really, really look forward to working with you moving forward. And if there are any questions in relation to the program, or how we can support you or assist you with your events, please don't hesitate to reach out. Details are on the screen, but we will also be sending through all the contact details for the staff and the presenters. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dina. So yes, please, if you have any questions, just put them into the chat in the meeting, and we'll come back to them a bit later. Thank you so much. Yeah, as Dina, made clear, this is one of our flagship programs, Refugee Stories for Change. So if you haven't already had any contact with us regarding this program, I'd encourage you to find out more. So we're going to move to our next speaker now. So I'd like to welcome Francine Scully. Francine is the engagement coordinator at River Nile School. And as I'll mention again, so River Nile School is an independent school in Melbourne that educates young refugee women from many different backgrounds. And River Nile is more than a school, it's a community. It's a transformative community that supports young women to thrive. So thank you so much, Francine. I'll hand over to you now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rebecca, and thanks, Dina, for that awesome presentation. So I am Francine Scully, and I will explain a little bit more about my role in a second. But if we can move to the next screen, please, Rebecca, I would love to also do an acknowledgement of country. So I would like to, River Nile School respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which our school is located, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and also the many lands from which you all joined today, and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to all First Nation peoples in the Zoom today. So if I can move to the next slide, please, Rebecca. So this is a very excited photo of me with our engagement and connect team at the Melbourne Awards. So I am the engagement coordinator and at River Nile School, and my role sits across community engagement, partnerships, ecosystems, but also amplifying the voices of our students and communities and working towards increased access and opportunities, which is really amazing work. And much of my work is also grounded in listening to young people and communities and understanding what supports access, belonging and participation, and then shaping programs and strategies around that. So whether that's community celebrations, practical responses to barriers, enrolment process, or creating platforms for young people to lead and share their stories. So for me, Refugee Week really amplifies the work that we do on a daily basis, not just in the engagement team, but across the school. And it really brings visibility and momentum to practices that we hope should be happening year round and centering lived experience, celebrating culture and contribution, and also creating spaces where refugee communities feel seen, valued and connected, which is really important to us at River Nile School, and definitely the lens that I'll be sharing ideas with you all today. So I thought it might be helpful before we get started to just frame a little bit about River Nile School. So as Rebecca mentioned, we are an independent senior secondary school focused on empowering young women aged 15 to 24 from refugee and refugee-like backgrounds through education and holistic supports. We are a fee-free school, so our students don't pay for anything that we offer at the school, and we are located in North Melbourne, but we service all over Melbourne. And when we talk about stories of resilience, and I'll share a little bit more about some background information on our amazing community, but when we talk about resilience, some of our students are travelling 2.5 hours to get to us every day. So there's so many stories just within their school journey, let alone their journey to Australia. So in terms of our school, we are a trauma-informed and strength-based school, which is why Refugee Week also resonates greatly with us, because we like to focus on the incredible strengths and stories and journeys of our students and also their wider communities. So we offer a beginner English VPC and VCEVM, and we really help the young women to obtain their high school certificate while also supporting wellbeing, agency and self-determination and really bright future pathways. We are more than just a school, as Rebecca mentioned. We like to see ourselves as a transformative community supporting young women from refugee and refugee-like backgrounds to thrive. And we do that through tailored education, English language development and holistic support, hopefully removing barriers to learning and opening up doors to independence, confidence and opportunity, which we're really proud of. So next slide, please, Rebecca. So I think this captures really wholeheartedly our belief and the belief that we carry with us every single day. And I think that belief is highlighted greatly during moments like Refugee Week. So we believe every young woman has a story worth telling and the potential to live a life of financial freedom, self-advocacy and purpose. Our classrooms are very vibrant and I welcome anyone in the room to come and visit us. We are open door and it's a really beautiful space that's filled with, like I said, so much resilience and strength, but also so much joy and community and solidarity. So yeah, the classrooms are really vibrant and it's a place where education meets empowerment and creativity sparks growth. And the voices are not just heard at our school, but really celebrated, as are the many identities of our students. So yeah, River Nile School is that place where resilience meets opportunity, and our role is to support the creation of those opportunities in partnership with a whole ecosystem of people that wrap around our communities, and hopefully building the tools to help our students navigate really complex worlds, but also build bright and boundless futures. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you about our community. So I really love the theme of Refugee Week, A Million Stories, and I think the previous speakers have spoken so beautifully about the concept of a million stories, because no one of our students' journeys are the same. And so I've just put together and sharing with you some data around our communities that paint a really incredible picture that I think lend really nicely to the theme of A Million Stories. And this slide here, you can see the many different languages spoken across our student community. And, language is more than communication. It holds identity, culture, memory, and a connection to home. And I think, for many of our students in navigating learning, relationships, and self-expression across multiple languages every day. And so when we talk about A Million Stories, language is often where those stories live first. And so I think Refugee Week and looking at this information and thinking about the communities that you're working with, I think it's a really good time to remind ourselves to honour that multilingualism as a strength and not a barrier, and to think about how we can create voices, spaces where all of those voices and those languages are heard as well. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So this slide here shows some of the countries of origin of our students, but it definitely doesn't tell the full story of how our students arrived in Australia. No two students from the same country have the same journey, regardless of their country of origin being the same, and their experiences and reasons for displacement may be different as well. So the country of origin is just a starting point and by no means a definition. And I think A Million Stories, again, like linking back to the theme, challenges the idea of a single refugee narrative and really invites all of us to recognise the depth and diversity within the communities that we're working with, and using Refugee Week as a holding space for these stories without flattening them into stereotypes. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So again, looking at the ages of our students, as I mentioned, we support students from 15 to 24 years old, and you can see the diversity in the ages, which can really shape how our students experience settlement, education and belonging. Some of our students arrive as young people and have missed years of schooling. Others step into education while navigating adulthood, work and family responsibilities. And, age can sometimes intersect with trauma, resilience, responsibility and hope. And A Million Stories also reminds us here that there is no right timeline for learning, healing or thriving. And, hopefully Refugee Week can also be a call to meet young people that, like our community, where they are and not where systems expect them to be. And, these are all, thoughts that you can explore in your own Refugee Week programs. Next slide, please, Rebecca. And this slide shows the different visa pathways that our students are on. Visa status shapes daily life, from access to services to stability and future planning. And students can sit side by side in the same classroom with very different levels of certainty about their futures. And again, I invite you all to think about the Million Stories and letting that be a reminder about the legal pathways are not lived equally amongst communities, and that Refugee Week can be a time to recognise these realities with empathy and also to advocate for systems that centre dignity and fairness as well. Next slide, please, Rebecca. And just, I think this might be the last slide around our student cohort. This data shows where our students live across Melbourne, and again highlights how far many travel to attend River Nile School. And I think, this also captures the journeys that they take to get to us, reflect that trust and the need, and also the search for safety, belonging and opportunity, which we all have a duty to create those kind of spaces. And, as I mentioned, for some of our students, long commutes also sit alongside caring responsibilities, work and settlement pressures. And place shapes access to education, community, transport and support. And again, linking it back to the topic of Refugee Week this year, A Million Stories reminds us that geography is a part of every person's story, and also invites us to think about not just Refugee Week, but how can we continue that work to design services around real lives, not convenience as well. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So hopefully looking at some of that data together, it really highlights that we don't see just one story, we see many. And Refugee Week is one moment in time that gives us a space to honour every single one of those stories. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you could do that as well. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So I've put here Refugee Week is a catalyst, and definitely in the case of River Nile School and the unique context that we are, it's not an add-on, it's just an amplification of the work that we do every day to support our students to have their voices, strengths and identities and journeys, cultures seen, heard, valued, and also celebrated. And it reflects who our students already are and the stories they carry every day. But what I'm hopeful for is that, beyond a unique context like River Nile School, that other organisations in the room today will also see Refugee Week as a catalyst for deeper ongoing work. So how can you start the conversation during Refugee Week, but then, keep it going and create other types of systems change around that as well? Sorry, Rebecca, I think we might have, need to, next slide. Yeah, awesome. So in terms of Refugee Week for our students, it matters greatly. So for the young women and their communities at River Nile School, Refugee Week creates visibility and affirmation. So that idea that my story belongs here. It also shifts people from being spoken about to being story holders and leaders. And it builds pride, safety, and belonging and counters the deficit narratives with strength, creativity, and agency. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So just to highlight some of the things that we have done in the past for Refugee Week and beyond at River Nile School. So we like to really create that environment where our students can lead and design what they want Refugee Week, but other events across the school to look like, to celebrate their identities and stories. And so we will invite students to design activities, assemblies, create their own creative expression through art, writing, performance, and storytelling that really honours the way they want their story to be shared. We also really embrace community-facing events, so not just internal at River Nile School, but placing our young people as leaders out in the community. And our events are often centred around that celebration of cultures, traditions, identities, journeys, and stories. And we also invite the outside community in to our student spaces. And that's can be really, really powerful because our students are the owners of the River Nile School environment and they shape that environment so greatly. And so inviting other people into that space where our students own it, it can be really empowering for our communities as well, because they are the ones that, are creating that space and other people are stepping into it. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So I've just included some photos here. So these aren't all from Refugee Week, but as I mentioned before, Refugee Week is an amplification of the work that we do on an ongoing basis daily throughout the whole year at River Nile School. But I think some of these photos highlight, and I'm hoping will create some inspiration in the room of some things that you might be able to explore as well. So this photo on this page, we actually took our students out. We participated in the Live FM program with Ralph Barber from Making Media. And our students created their own radio shows. For some of them, that was in language. And when we come back to the concept of the different languages that our students speak, the honouring of their first languages was really important through this program. And so the two students on the left there, they actually did a program in language. And we then took that out to the Victoria market and did a public broadcast there, which was really amazing for our students to just, have people walking past, stopping and listening to their stories. And it was a really, really incredible moment for them. Next slide, please, Rebecca. This was another thing that we did that really celebrated the different strengths that our students have beyond learning, beyond language. So we participated in a community market and we invited our students to create their own contributions, whatever that was. For some of our students, they are the most incredible cooks. Others were really incredible craftspeople where they were making things, and we actually had a stand where our students got to sell the things that they had made. And really celebrate those incredible strengths that they have that transcend language and so many other things. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So this was another incredible example where our students were lucky enough to participate in the Lord Mayor's Summit at the City of Melbourne, which we were really grateful for. But they got to share their voices, for some of our students walking into the Melbourne Town Hall for the first time with 400 people from across sectors was just the most incredible experience. But again, it was that moment where their voices felt really seen and heard, and their contributions to shaping a future Melbourne were really, really powerful. And so again, I'm sharing this with you today to think about during Refugee Week and well beyond, how can you create spaces for the voices of refugee communities to really have a seat at the table. Next slide, please, Rebecca. Another beautiful event that we did during Youth Fest, which was all about celebrating the strengths of our young people. We had a talent show and we took over the drill hall, and our students, you can see the artwork in the background, our incredible students here dancing, and they actually brought their siblings along because their siblings dance together all the time at home. So it's creating those spaces and those moments where our students get to lean into, and the communities that you work with get to lean into their strengths and bring their full selves to different spaces. Next slide, please, Rebecca. This was another example as well, where we invited our students to be the storytellers, to be the leaders. On the right there, you can see one of our students who is an incredible artist, took the lead and created an art workshop to run with people. And on the left, our beautiful Simma, she loves writing poetry, and she wrote this beautiful poem in language, and we turned that into a video for her and got to share that with community as well. So again, you can see the threads of where we're really just promoting the way that students want to share their voices, share their stories, share their skills and talents, and just scaffolding that and supporting those ideas and those ways of communicating their identities to come to life. Next slide, please, Rebecca. And if you would like to see how this looks, this is another example of something that we started as an annual thing, where we have a block party at Rivenile School, and we have one coming up on the 27th of March. And again, it is that celebration of culture, identity, sharing, and really how are we creating those safe spaces where barriers are being broken down. All right, next slide, please, Rebecca. So in terms of this year's Refugee Week, so we're actually putting on an exhibition that's honouring the past, present and future. And so we are planning a creative and very much a community-led exhibition that will bring people together in North Melbourne during Refugee Week, but from all over Melbourne. So through the exhibition, we're still in the stages of bringing this idea together, but the exhibition, the goal is that it will be a space to share stories, artefacts and lived experience from refugee communities that have been connected to Rivenile School from past to present and in the future, and shaping our dreams for the future together. So the exhibition will centre refugee voices as storytellers, contributors and facilitators, not subjects, and ethically engage community members by valuing and paying for cultural knowledge and labour. And we're going to be inviting contributions from across Melbourne, bringing together residents, students, educators and organisations to reflect, learn and connect, and really creating that space for dialogue, belonging and celebration across cultures and generations. And one of the big things that is not just for this exhibition, but also something we do ongoingly with our events and different initiatives at River Nile School, is that we invite in organisations and community leaders, because we are really passionate about this idea that we are part of an ecosystem, and we can work together for so much greater impact, and a shared responsibility of creating spaces for refugee communities to be seen, heard and celebrated. So we do that a lot, and this will be a big feature of the exhibition as well. And at its heart, storytelling, we're looking at storytelling as a tool for connection, inclusion and community pride. Next slide, please. So just to, in starting to close up, so this Refugee Week, I'd really love to invite you to think about when you're planning your programs. So think about partnering with organisations that are already trusted by and walking alongside refugee communities. And involve the communities that you're working with. So involve families, local artists, elders and community advocates, and really use Refugee Week as a way to strengthen existing relationships and not just extract stories. And again, inviting communities, as some of those examples that I shared earlier, so inviting communities to share their strengths, talents, cultures and traditions in ways that they choose, and really thinking about how you can pay people for their time, expertise and cultural labour wherever possible. And just even think about where are the spaces and the possibilities to actually ask communities how they want to be involved, and really listen to that and see how you can bring that alive. And yeah, try to avoid a single story speaker or narrative, and honour the diversity and complexity of what a million stories actually means. And then I guess biggest call to action is treating Refugee Week as that catalyst that I mentioned before, and thinking about beyond Refugee Week, what actions can you take as an organisation to embed refugee voices into ongoing work as well. And next slide, which is my last slide. So just to wrap up, A Million Stories reminds us that there is no single refugee experience, and that it is our role of the people in the room working in organisations and communities to create spaces for many different voices to be heard, valued and sustained during Refugee Week, but also beyond 1 week as well. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Francine. Thank you for amazing presentation. That was fantastic. And we've had some some comments in the chat. What an amazing school. I love this. So thank you. If anyone else has any comments or questions, please add them to the chat. So I think we would like to just wrap up now with a sort of overall call to action, particularly for councils. Sophia just wanted to add something else.
Yes.
Sophia.
Sorry, Rebecca. Thanks, Francine. That was fantastic. And thank you, Dina and Rebecca as well. So I'd highly encourage you to contact Dina or Francine if you're needing any speakers or further support with involvement for your event for people with lived experience. I wanted to just also mention that we do have a sponsorship opportunity as well. If you would like to be a sponsor of Refugee Week, we do have a prospectus that we can send out to you. There's a number of different levels of sponsorship should you be interested. If you do want to sponsor Refugee Week at whatever level, your logo will appear on the poster. We will also do some social media promotion of your organisation. And then at the higher end of the sponsorship, we will do a bit more promotion of whatever event that you decide to put on. So we are happy to send the prospectus your way to have a look at, and should you be interested, there's the person that you need to contact to walk you through the sponsorship process as well.
Thanks, Sophia. Okay, so I'm just going to conclude by thanking all the speakers and just to wrap up the action items or the call to action that as the way we see it, the Refugee Council. So I understand a number of your councils on the line today would have already got events perhaps being planned. I just echo what the other speakers have said, in particular, Francine. It's really important if you can support or partner with local community groups, particularly local refugee-led community groups or individuals, and organisations when you're planning events. And like Francine said, trying to find opportunities and spaces where the organisation of these events are led by people with lived experience and reflect what they want and they're interested in. So there's a number of ways to go about that. So feel free to reach out to us if you'd like some more information or tips on how to do that. Another idea we have, which has happened previously, is there may be schools in your local government area that would be potentially interested in having a refugee ambassador speaker give a presentation at their school, but they may not have the funds to book a speaker. And we do give concession rates to schools that are financially disadvantaged, but local councils have also sponsored schools to have those presentations. So if you're interested in talking about that further, please reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with Dina to discuss that further. And overall, it's really, quite simple to amplify the message of Refugee Week by displaying the posters, by becoming a poster pickup point yourself, and using all the resources that Sophia was talking about, which are available at the Refugee Week website. In your communications. So as mentioned, we have a lot of templates. We have templates like we're using today for presentations. We have templates for social media posts. We have Refugee Week templates for all kinds of communications collateral that you might be designing yourself that you could perhaps use. And we would love you to to engage with our content that we're posting as well. Obviously, a lot of the communications happens online, not just in in-person events. So that's really important. So if you're a councillor or mayor and you are interested in, for example, in putting out positive messaging or quotes during Refugee Week, that is really impactful as well. So yes, we want you to engage people with lived experience and raise their voices. But it's also impactful to show your support as well, particularly if you're in a position of influence, such as a counsellor, to put out really encouraging and supportive messages as well. So I think we'll wrap up then. But if anyone else has, I'm just going to go to the questions and comments. So we have a comment from Kristen Carney saying, "Thanks, Francine. What a great school." And we have a message from Fairfield saying, "Apologies, they have to leave." And then we have another comment. Talking about how they put on an event last year. I had an amazing speaker last year at our library, and I added a couple of other activities and displays to make it more attractive. Unfortunately, I had a very low number of attendees despite putting a lot of effort into it. I'm thinking to do an activity like cooking or craft this year. Happy to hear what you recommend to attract more people to these events. Does any of the speakers like to make some suggestions?
If you haven't already, if you register your event with us, it's always a really good way to try and attract more people. We can also help advise on how to sort of promote it on social media. And then, like I say, if you are in a position to be a sponsor, then we can give it a bit more of a lift on our side as well. And obviously, by collaborating, if you were to collaborate with some of the refugee-led organisations, like Francine and Dina have mentioned as well, that's always a really big help. And we're happy to, where possible, help connect you to those organisations as well.
Thanks, Sophia. Does anyone else have anything to add about promotion?
My comment is probably less about promotion, even though just to share another avenue for promotion, the Victorian Multicultural Commission, they have the VM Connect as well, where you can actually share different events around that are connected to multicultural events, which is a really great tool for advertising as well. But just coming back to low attendance, I think it's really important to get feedback as well from participants or your intended audience for the events. To also see sometimes, I think, we do, and it can be really heartbreaking when you pour so much effort into an event and it's got really great intentions, but, it might, just really getting that feedback from either the communities or, the people that are accessing your organisation, and just getting some information around what are the types of activities that will enhance engagement. I think, that's really powerful. And I know sometimes even gathering that information, you can face the risk of getting, low participation in surveys and things. But I think the more that you can get information about what either the communities or the people that are accessing your service will engage with, then that can really help to create a richer event in the future as well.
I think what I'd like to add too is if it is a library from a council's perspective, I think it would be really, really important to have a partnership with the local school where you can actually invite the class to come to the library for an excursion and get them to actually meet and greet with the refugee ambassador or the speaker. A lot of the time schools have a lot of interest, but they don't have the resources to make it happen. I'll just give a really quick example. In the last financial year, we had over 189 inquiries for a session to be delivered. We were only able to deliver over 82 sessions because we didn't actually have the resources, the financial resources to pay our ambassadors so they could go out and have those presentations. So the interest is definitely there, but having a partnership or collaborating with a local service or a local school will actually ensure that you get those seats filled with people. And what I've learned from working with community, if the community can't come to us, then we will go to the community. So have a talk about, the possibility of perhaps, taking that ambassador to a school or to a local service provider that may actually have the groups and the people in their service where they can actually be able to hear from a person with refugee lived experience. So I think internal collaboration, but also external collaboration with stakeholders can really, really help boost up those numbers of attendees to your event.
Okay, thanks, Gina. I'm just looking at the rest of the messages. Somebody is asking, is there anyone here from Liverpool Council that they could make contact with? I'm not sure if we have anyone here from Liverpool Council. But if not, please raise your hand. If not, we can try and put you in contact after the meeting with someone.
I'm not sure if you can see, someone's got their hand up from the audience.
Is that
Mojgan? Hi, sorry. I'm not from Liverpool. I had the hand up before.
Yeah, you were asking about the events, right?
Yes, which is fantastic. Thank you. I just want to say, I think part of the issue was last year that we sort of came on board last minute, so we did not take advantage of, I think, listing our events on your website, even in our booklet. We went with a lot of social media and posters and, word of mouth. So that was partly that, because the funding from the council sort of came last minute, as like we do have a bit of funding. We're not a council-run library, and we're a company, but we do work with our council. And this year I could get a little bit of funding as well, which I'm very excited about. And we're starting a little bit earlier. But what I found is, and I know each clientele is different. So I had made the refugee display earlier on, and we had a lot of things sort of leading into this event. And I would get excited when people would be looking at the display, and I would jump on the occasion and say, "Look, we actually have this amazing event." And then some people were like, "Oh, what is it about? What exactly is it?" "Oh, no, we're not interested in that." And I was like, "Got it." Not everybody is ready to hear stories like that, and people probably have this misconception of it's going to be grim and dark, and so I guess there's a bit of fear, and there's a bit of I just don't want to know, or I don't care. So I found that it's a lot harder to engage them if it's a talk, as amazing as ours was. But I was looking at the ambassadors list again, and I know everybody's really high achievers and they're fantastic speakers, but maybe in future, if they can also, and I don't know, I might be missing it, if they can also offer that they can run an art workshop or a cooking session or something, as well as talking about this would be something that is not as dry as it looks from outside. And while you engage them in a cooking, you can talk about their story, and you can talk about yourself, or how it's linking to your heritage. And that's what I'm thinking to do at the moment. So I might not, unfortunately, might not be able to use any of the speakers this year, but I'm looking for people with refugee background and running, like I'm looking at people who do flower arrangements or do cooking, or, coffees around the world, things like that, that gets people coming in. And then you feed them that amazing story, and hopefully they will be more positive and receptive after that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great, innovative idea, and I think that's what I think that's a really, really great idea, and we are here to help where possible. We have a very diverse range of skills and expertise from our ambassadors, and so that's just if I'm sure Dina and Sadiqa, who works with Dina, if there is someone with a particular set of expertise that you're after for this more innovative event, then I'm sure we'll be really happy to help coordinate where possible.
Absolutely. There is we do have a resource called Share a Meal, Share a Story. So there is a book on our website that you can have a look at. And it actually does, highlights the stories of people from a refugee background, but also looked at the stories of the meals that are really important and unique to that individual refugee ambassador. So I would encourage you that, have a look at that resource, and also
Can you put yourself on mute, please? Thank you.
Sorry. So we have done a very similar workshop where we've gotten people to look at the recipes, talk about the recipes, so they've become a discussion point for people. But as Sophia mentioned, our refugee ambassadors are experts in different areas. They're not just speakers, but they bring a lot more to the conversation. So if there is something that is particularly of interest to your local council, or you may find that your groups will actually connect to it in a better way, and if it means that more people will be attracted, please do just let us know, and we will navigate to see how we can meet that need as well for the community.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I think that's all the questions. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to email us anytime. I'm happy to we'll email everyone after the webinar, and we'll give out our contact details, but feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we'll put you in touch with the staff member who can best assist you. But like Sophia said, we have a lot of expertise in the refugee ambassador pool of speakers, but also amongst the staff team as well. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have, and if we can't assist, we've got quite a large network as well of our member organisations as well. We have 100 member organisations, so we're happy to to refer you to those organisations. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you so much again to our speakers, Sophia, Dina, and our special guest speaker, Francine. We really appreciate the time and energy you've put into your presentations, and we will be sending a recording round to everyone who registered, so they can watch it again, or for those that weren't able to actually attend in the end. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day, and look forward to being in touch with you in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.